Alright, hello everybody. now we're now we're inside a bus game itself. We're inside of the game and we can see everything about it. So you may notice that it's much brighter than it was before. That's because the editor, I suppose, just wants to be brighter than the rest of the game. But it's mainly because of this kind of grid that we see. I'm pretty sure this is what is causing us to have this view, because if you go under it, then you see it kind of disappears and then everything's black again. Anyway, so we're inside the game here. I can show you basically how I made the game. It's a very simple prototype, so it's not really like you need to think about it too much. But anyway, here's where the player spawns. So the player spawns right here, and you see there's a kind of capsule around this area. That's because that capsule is actually the player's collision box. You can see this line stretching out from the player's face, and you can see this little camera icon. And so basically this is the player's eyes looking that way, and the player's eyes are done by a camera, which you can see it's outlined here. This is outlined what the screen currently can see from its perspective, and it's also showing the direction that it is. It's pointing upwards instead of pointing upside down. Um, and yeah, this line is actually the interaction line. Anything that this line touches, the player can interact with. So the bus that you saw earlier is one of those things. Anyway, we have these fences, and these fences are just recreational. You can see they're just flat planes, and they do not have a collision box, but there is a massive collision box around this entire area to basically stop the player from entering this area entirely. So that's a little quirk right there, I suppose. And also, this fence here doesn't have any collision at all, so you can just walk right through it. You can walk over this ledge here. And then there's this space right here. I decided to keep it open for absolutely no reason. Suppose that it's a prototype and it doesn't really matter. And then you can see there's some nifty collision boxes over the trash cans and other areas. But and I did forget to add collision boxes to these buildings over here. So the next time that you play the game, you might just enjoy walking through these buildings and appreciating the fact that you don't need to walk around them anymore. And you can actually visit this guy here who is he's picking up garbage in the game. Anyway, so you may want to learn some important things about this game. For example, why did I make it? And for example, how does it work? Those are two important questions. So let's start with how does it. Let's start with why did I make it. So the reason I made this game is because I wanted players to experience what it felt to be pressured by something or someone. And I decided that the best way to do that is to introduce like a bus character. And obviously, a bus is not really a living creature, so that makes it even more unsettling. Of course, people can disagree with me, but I don't. I don't disagree with myself. Anyway, here's the bus itself. So you see, it's very simple. It's got a little collision box here on the side. It's got a collision box here on the front. Now you see in the tutorial video, I didn't actually get run over by the bus, but I can do it in this video because this is going to be a longer video, and I don't really need to make it short. So anyway, we can go ahead and see. This is the area that the player can click on. The reason that the player can click on that is because I specifically made this little area have a script that's part of this class called hover area that I created as well. Very simple to create. Um, you can see that it just extends area 3D, which is what this is. This node is area 3D, and it extends. That it creates this class hover area that has these related hover text, click text, and that is what shows up when you hover over an interactable object. You see, for example, enter bus, which is pointed out right here. So if you wanted to see that in game, I'm actually going to show you. I can show you. I mean, this is really not necessary, but I will show you anyway because why not, right? So let's walk over here, and the first thing we're going to do before we do that is that we're actually going to make the player much faster. So we're going to go up here, and we're going to make it 1.4 speed instead of the other thing. Alright, so we just speed over here, and you see we don't even got to worry about it anymore. We can just speed around. Anyway, so you can see, we can hover over the bus right here, and we can click it, you see? And it's very cool, we can click it, but I'm not going to do that. because I want to show what happens when you get run over by the bus instead. So, actually, we can't actually get run over by the bus because it's such a steep angle when it moves. Um, let's try it again. Let's try it for a second time. I hope not to be, actually we can do it right here. Alright, here we go. Alright, so anyway, that's what happens when you get run over by the bus. You literally just get jump scared, and that's the end of the game. For you, at least. And you may ask, well, why did I choose to do that? Well, why not? Anyway, so let's get back to the point. Why did I make this game? Oh yeah, because I wanted to show what it's like to have these expectations placed on you, not knowing what to do with them. So, for example, the bus may not seem like an expectation to many people, and I'm sure that it never should, but to me it does. So, um, that's why I chose the bus, because it's an expectation, you know. And it's not that bad either. It's a large moving device that's it's all right. It's not that bad. I'm not going to go too in depth about my intentions about why I added a bus to the game, but I am going to say that this is the game right here, and that's pretty much it. Anyway, and we got these lights as well. These lights literally just serve the purpose of lighting up an area. That's all they do. So don't worry about them. They're not very complicated. They're just, lighting up the area, and that's all they do. You can move them into the area and just move them around normally, like this, and that's all you got to do. And I do emphasize to use undo and redo when you're making a game, but that's not really important. What is important, however, is that we focus on the actual aspects of the game. So, for example, why is this area not walkable? Well, it's because of this massive collision box that prevents you from walking through it. Well, why can the bus go through it? Well, that's because the bus doesn't actually have a collision box. And for another thing, the bus uses tweening to get to where it wants to go. It just basically changes its position property, which you can see right here, to go wherever it wants to go. It doesn't really care about anything in its way, not a collision box, nothing else. If the bus was a rigid body or something of that sort that applied to physics or cared about physics, then, and also if the bus was, instead of changing its position, if it was applying an impulse to itself, and assuming there was floor under it, it would move forward and then it would crash into the side of this collision box here, or the one over here, this wall over here, and it would not ever reach you. But you see, since the bus uses tweening, there's absolutely no need for that. Sorry, since it doesn't use physics. Anyway, so we can go ahead and just see some other things. So for example, this ending cutscene, right? What's so special about that? Well, we can look in here and see there's absolutely nothing going on. It's just the interior of a house. So it's not really that scary or anything. It's just the interior of a house, pretty normal. But how it becomes scary is because after the ending, you can finally see these two things right here. So there's just this gigantic thing inside your house. You don't even know how it got there. Well, that's pretty much the horror of the game, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm going to say that it's not really that scary when you boil it down to it. Because, it's just there, and that's all it is. So anyway, that's how that works. Just toggles the visibility of this and this, the light and the mesh for this bus. That's it. So there we go. That's how the ending works. And if you may wonder how or why it does this, it's because of, or why it changes the visibility, is because of this little thing right here, this collision shape, which is attached to an Area 3D, or sorry, which this Area 3D uses this collision shape to listen to a signal, or rather an event, as you may be familiar with, called body entered. You can see the signals right here in the top right. Here they are, all of them. And you see here the ones that we care about, area entered, area exited. Or sorry, body entered and body exited, because the player is actually a body, not an area. So anyway, body entered, and then we check that it's a player. And then we go ahead and do this. And how is it a player? Well, look at the player. We see that it has a class name player. Decided to make itself known as player. So that's how we can check and create a new class called player. We don't have to worry about or depend on naming or anything else that may be a bit strange. We can just put it as a class and we solve the issue right there and then. We don't need to worry about anything else. Just type this and that's it. Anyway, so you can see what it does is that it goes ahead and it stops the player from moving, because you see the player is B in this case. So it sets the player's action allowed property to false. Then it turns the player towards the bus. Then it shows the bus in the light. Then it plays the sound. Then it creates the tween. and this tween is actually not used. So this never runs. But we do have this instead, which just quits the game after 10 seconds. And finally, we have this part which pauses the entire game so that nothing else processes except for the sound, which specifically has its process property set to always, so that it never is stopped by anything, not even the paused attribute on get tree. Anyway, now that you see how that works, I mean, it should be a little bit clearer as to how the bus and anything happens in this area right here. But you may still be wondering about other things. For instance, how are we hearing the players' walking sounds? Or maybe how is like pretty much anything going on? Well, I explained to you already. Tweens is how things move around in this game, so that's exactly what happens. When the bus wants to do this animation of moving forward, it uses a tween, so it goes from over there to over here, and also from over here to over here, and over there to over there. And that's pretty much all it is. And if you wanted it to be instantaneous, you just change the position property and that will make sure that you don't gotta animate anything. You can just immediately move the thing wherever you want it to go instantly. But if you do want it to be animated, you gotta use a tween, or you can use your own logic inside of the process function, which is available in every single thing. Just go ahead and put it in there, and you don't even have to worry about it. It's physics process or process. Just go ahead and put your own logic for moving it frame by frame, and there you go. It's pretty much done, done, and done. So you can see there's more lights over here, and these lights do absolutely nothing other than illuminate the area. You can see there's absolutely nothing over here as well, and there actually is absolutely nothing over here. There is no garbage man, there is nothing. So how does he show up there later? Well, that's pretty simple. This garbage man and this garbage truck and all of the related garbage things are inside of a node, which you can see right here. You can imagine it as a folder or whatever you like, but this is the parent of all of these things. So you can move it wherever you like, and I'll demonstrate as by moving the handle right here, you can move this entire scene wherever you want it to go. And it's not actually a scene, at least not in good note terminology, but it can be. I refer to it that way because of absolutely no reason. So, you can move it wherever you want it to go, and it goes right there. So that's exactly how I move it to this area afterwards, by using a completely arbitrarily placed node 3D, which is positioned right here, and you can see that it's all the way over there because the pivot point of both of these are actually completely broken. So if you actually look at the trash scene, the pivot point is all the way over here for absolutely no good reason at all. And that's the reason that the other point, where it's set to go, is absolutely over here for no reason at all. Because that's what pivots do. They pivot an object around a certain point, so it's going to be offset from that certain point. And it's not really too mathematical or mathological. It's pretty simple, and that's all it is. Now on day 5, you see that you spawn at a different location. Well, how does that happen? There is absolutely no fancy tricks with this one. It's just a simple node 3D which has a position attribute. And what you're going to do with that is that you're going to go ahead and take that position attribute on day 5 inside of the day manager, which I created to manage each day. And then you go ahead, make sure that day is day 5, and then you go ahead and teleport the guy. Or sorry, you set his global position to day 5. Now, you see I'm kind of struggling to find the place where I actually put that code, and that is because I believe that it may be somewhere that absolutely makes no sense. Let's see, inside a trash scene, maybe. Nope, it's not inside of that either. So let's see, it might be inside of Day Manager itself. And yes, it is. You can see it's right here. Sets main player global transform to day 5 spawn global transform. So global transform is just a fancy way of saying that the node's position and rotation will be involved instead of just the position or just the rotation. So there you have it. Player gets teleported and rotated in the same exact place as this node 3D over here. And you may notice this node 3D is very close to the floor. Well, that's because the player's pivot point is actually also very close to the floor. You can see the pivot point is right there on the floor. So that means that the point where you want to teleport the player, if you put that near the floor, has to be also near the floor. So there you go. That's pretty much some functions of this game explained. And yeah, you may wonder what's up with this garbage truck. Well, there's absolutely nothing going on with this garbage truck. The garbage truck can't move, and it doesn't even have a collision volume. So you don't really got to worry about it too much other than it looking pretty, so that the game will function a little bit more beautifully. Anyway, walk around this corner here and we see that there's a new area. just like I said in the tutorial, but this is actually an area that you can't enter. Why is that? Because this collision box covers both of these buildings. Now you may be wondering, well, why is it that there are buildings and then the collision box are separate from the buildings? Well, the fact is that these buildings are actually made up of meshes, and these meshes actually have absolutely nothing to do with physics. What actually has to do with physics are the collision boxes that fill practically every single square inch of this map. Those are actually the things that cause physics to tick in this game. So you can completely dissociate the building itself from the actual physics in this game. It's the collision boxes that do the heavy lifting for all physics interactions and also detecting whether or not something entered an area, for example, for this right here, where we do the ending. So that's pretty much the entirety of the game right here. Now you may wonder, why is it that I created these buildings in the distance that have absolutely nothing to do with the game because you can't even see them? Well, the answer to that is that I originally planned for the environment to be much brighter. And since this game is only a test, that means that if you want it to, I can actually change it to be a different environment, maybe even have a proper sky in order. If you wanted to set a proper sky, just go ahead and do that. Set this little property right here, set this little property over here, and you change the colors to whatever you want. And there you go, you have yourself a nice little sky that illuminates everything so that you can see a little bit better and so that the models that I made in the distance actually serve a purpose instead of being invisible. But the fact is that we're not here to talk about any of that at all. And honestly, we barely even care about that stuff. So what we're going to check instead, we're gonna go ahead and make sure that I didn't mess anything up while explaining everything to you guys. Because if I did, that would be a problem. But I see exactly what I'm doing over here. So there's actually what I'm showing and unshowing. It's this little jump scare bus over here and the light. So we can actually just go ahead and hide both of those because those need to be hidden. And I don't want to bite myself later. So there we go. Then we go ahead and save the scene like usual. And the scene will tell me to save it again if I move anything on the scene or change any property or do pretty much anything else. Except move my camera around in this case, which is perfectly fine. So there you go, you have an overview of the game and everything, and it's not really that complicated, and there you go. And if you do want further tutorials or devlogs on my different games, then you know what, maybe I will post more devlogs on the different games. Because there's nothing more interesting than watching exactly how the game was created after playing the game. That's pretty much it. Alright, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. There we go.